The United States is bracing for protests as a jury resumes deliberations over the fate of Derek Chauvin. The former policeman is accused of killing African-American George Floyd while on duty. Chauvin has pleaded not guilty to all of his charges. Wrapping up their case, the prosecution has urged jurors to use their common sense. That's in reference to the video seen around the world in which Chauvin knelt on Floyd's neck for more than 9 minutes. Prosecutors say Chauvin had to know he was killing Floyd right beneath him.
Believe your eyes, that unreasonable force pinning him to the ground, that's what killed him. This was a homicide.
Chauvin's lawyer argues that he behaved as any reasonable police officer would. The defense also contends Floyd died of heart disease and illegal drug use and not Chauvin's actions.
They just want you to ignore significant medical issues that presented to Mr. Floyd. And the failure of the state's experts to acknowledge any possibility at all, that any of these other factors in any way contributed to Mr. Floyd's death defies medical science, and it defies common sense and reason.
Simon Marks joins us live now from Washington, D.C. Simon, how will the jury conduct its deliberations on this case?
Well, they started last night, Dawn, and they convened in their jury room in the courthouse in Minneapolis until 7 o'clock last night, beginning the process of deciding their verdict. All of those deliberations, of course, taking place entirely in private. There is a sheriff's deputy who was sworn in under oath and promised to ensure that at no point would their deliberations be interrupted by anyone. The judge also told them that they should not, under any circumstances, factor in the consequences of their verdict in reaching their deliberation, which means that for a jury already facing a pretty complicated task, the stakes have become even higher because we know that in Minneapolis itself and in many other cities across the country, there is a growing sense of tension about what will happen on the streets in the event that the jury were to acquit former police officer Derek Chauvin of the most serious charge that he faces, second-degree murder. Officer Chauvin, of course, pled the Fifth Amendment against self-incrimination, so the jury never heard his account of that fateful day last May when he had George Floyd beneath his knee for more than 9.5 minutes. That's a gamble that the defense has taken, but they concluded that there was sufficient doubt in the case that they didn't need to put Derek Chauvin on the witness stand. The deliberations could go on for hours. They could go on for days. We have no idea when the verdict's going to come in, but we certainly know tension's very high in Minneapolis ahead of its delivery.
And when that verdict does come in, Simon, whatever it may be, how far are cities across the United States now bracing for protests?
Well, definitely bracing. I mean, up in New York, we've heard warnings from some civil rights activists that even if Derek Chauvin is convicted of the most serious charge that he faces, second-degree murder, there will be protests there and in other parts of the country because activists argue that the trial in and of itself will not have ended the issue of brutal police behaviour towards minority unarmed suspects in the United States. Now, I think an acquittal of that serious charge, second-degree murder, is likely to lead to absolute uproar on the streets of Minneapolis. That is certainly what the mayor of the city is anticipating. The White House said yesterday they want to give space for peaceful protests to occur after the verdict is delivered. But there will be questions for the White House about what happens if those protests do indeed turn violent.
Simon, thank you. Simon Marks, Washington, D.C.